At 7:40 on a grey London morning, the red box passed Camilla's door and never stopped. It kept going down the corridor, past the Queen Consort's apartments, and according to household staff, it was set down outside the rooms of a woman who will never wear the crown. Princess Anne. Now look, before you think this is some small ceremonial thing, let me tell you what that box really is. The red box holds the papers only the monarch is meant to see. State secrets, intelligence briefings, the documents that decide things. Whoever opens that box holds the real power, not the title. The power. And honestly, the fact that it slid past Camilla tells you everything, because there is a reason Charles will trust his sister with the one thing he will not trust his own wife to touch. And by the end of this, you are going to understand exactly what that reason is. Let me take you back. Most of you did not read this in a book, you lived it. Diana married Charles in 1981, and the whole world watched, and somewhere just out of frame stood a woman who never went away. Camilla. The fairy tale had a third person in it from the start. Diana knew, the public knew, and for years she carried that knowledge alone while the institution looked the other way. Diana died in August 1997. She was 36. And this country has never quite forgiven the woman it blamed for the years of unhappiness that came before. Here's the thing most channels skip. Camilla won the marriage. She got the ring in 2005. She got the crown in 2023. On paper, she got everything Diana lost. But there was always one room she could not enter. If you watched that funeral in September 1997, you remember the small white card on the coffin that simply said, "Mummy." You remember the silence on the streets. That grief never really left. It just went quiet, and quiet is not the same as gone. Now look, we cannot independently confirm exactly how that box moved that morning or who carried it. But what is documented is the pattern, and the pattern points in one direction only. So here is where this stops being old family pain and starts becoming something colder. Because while everyone watched Camilla collect titles, another woman spent 50 years collecting something far more valuable. Trust. Let me tell you about the keys, not the crown. Princess Anne is 2 years younger than Charles. She lived through everything he lived through. The same crises, the same prime ministers, the same long nights inside that institution. She does not need a briefing on why history matters because she was standing in the room when that history happened. And here is the part that still stings if you think about it. When Anne was a girl, every time a brother was born, she was pushed further down the line of succession. Not for anything she did, simply for being a daughter. Older than 2 of her brothers and still passed over. According to people who knew the family then, Anne never once complained about it out loud. She just got to work. Whether that silence was acceptance or strategy, honestly, only she knows. But what is documented is the work. Anne does more than 450 public engagements a year, more than almost any royal alive. While others chased the cameras, she chased the schedule. And the Queen noticed throughout the second half of the last century, whenever the Commonwealth wobbled, Elizabeth did not send the glamorous ones. She sent Anne to the tense places, the delicate places, the ones where a wrong word could break a relationship between nations. She trusted her daughter to make real decisions on the Crown's behalf when she could not be there herself. That was not a tour. That was an education in statecraft, stretched across decades. So let me show you the plan nobody announced. This is where most coverage stops. And stopping there means missing the entire point. In late 2022, in the last weeks of her life, Elizabeth did something quiet and surgical. She had Parliament amend the rules so that Anne and her brother Edward became Counsellors of State for life, people who can step in and act when the monarch cannot. Think about why that mattered. Harry had walked away to California. Andrew had become impossible to use after his own scandals. The list of people who could legally hold the monarch's powers had quietly fallen apart. Elizabeth fixed it in one move. She put the 2 children she trusted onto that list permanently through Parliament where no one could argue and no one could undo it. She was building a safety net for a son she knew would one day get tired, and she was naming exactly who would catch him. Now, royal gossip has a way of turning quiet legal moves into grand conspiracies. We cannot say Elizabeth foresaw every detail of what is happening now. But the record speaks for itself. She chose Anne on purpose. She always had. The honours tell the same story if you read them in order. Princess Royal in 1987, a title only one woman can hold at a time. Knight of the Thistle in 1996, Scotland's highest honour, earned through years of real work and not one photo opportunity. And then the coronation, May the 6th, 2023. Charles chose Anne as his gold stick in waiting, the person trusted with the monarch's safety. So there she was, in uniform, on horseback, riding directly behind her brother's coach through London. That was not nostalgia. That was Charles putting his trust on the public record, where the whole nation could see who actually had his back. And honestly, the man beside Anne got pulled up right alongside her. Timothy Lawrence arrived in the mid-80s, a young naval officer working quietly inside the household. No spotlight, no demands, just steady. Charles recently raised him to the highest rank of the Royal Victorian Order, the King's personal thank you given by hand, not by government. The message was simple. We see who stays, we see who works, we see who never asked for a thing. Camilla married the king, Anne married the work. Now here is where the past gets personal and where this turns from cold strategy into something that must sting inside those palace walls. Because long before Camilla was a duchess or a queen, back in the early 70s, the man she would marry, Andrew Parker Bowles, was close to Anne first. They shared horses, they shared a world. People who were there say it was real. It did not last, and they stayed friends and life moved on. Anne married, divorced, and found steady ground with Timothy. But sit with the shape of it for a moment. The woman who lost that man went on to become the most trusted figure in the family. The woman who married him went on to wear a crown the public never fully accepted. One got the title, one got the keys. Whether every twist of that history played out exactly as people remember, we cannot say for certain. But the outline is documented and the irony is impossible to miss. So let me walk you through the morning itself, the way staff describe it. Charles is unwell. That is not gossip, that is public knowledge, said out loud by the king himself. A monarch cannot sit through treatment and run a country on the same afternoon. Something has to give. The question was always who steps in. The obvious answer was William, the heir, the future king. But William cannot, and honestly, when you look at his life right now, you understand why instantly. Catherine has been through her own serious recovery. He has 3 young children who need a father in the room, not a stand-in king buried under state papers. He already carries the weight of the throne that is coming. Pile the daily machinery of the crown on top of that today, and it would break almost anyone. So Charles did not look down a generation, he looked sideways, to the one person who wants nothing. And that is the genius of it. When Anne carries that box, no one wonders what she's plotting. There is no faction behind her, no path to the throne for her to climb. She cannot become queen even if she wanted it, and she has never wanted it. So there is nothing to twist, nothing to grab, nothing to fear. The government trusts her. The public trusts her. And Charles trusts her completely. A title is given. Trust is earned. Anne earned hers. Now, the picture staff describe is a quiet one. At 7:40 in the morning, the red box arrives. It does not pause at the Queen Consort's door. It is carried on and set down where the work gets done. And the woman who opens it does not smile, does not announce it, does not call anyone. She simply puts on her glasses and begins. One short gesture, no ceremony. That is the whole scene. And honestly, that is exactly why people cannot stop talking about it. We cannot confirm every detail of that morning happened in precisely that order. But what is on the record is who holds the trust and who does not. And the record is brutal in its plainness, because somewhere in that same building, the Queen Consort wakes up to a quiet truth. She has the crown. She has the seat beside him at every state dinner. She has the title millions said she would never get, and she does not have the box. She froze, one insider reportedly said. When she first understood the arrangement, she asked, she was answered politely. She got nothing that mattered. Whether that exact moment played out word for word We cannot verify. But the silence around her position is real, and the silence is the loudest part. And here is the twist nobody expects. You would think Charles, of all people, would soften the blow for the woman who stood by him for decades. You would think he would find her a role, a paper, a corner of the power to hold. He did not. He let it stand. The man who fought the world to marry her simply allowed the box to pass her by. Trust is not a title. That, reportedly, is the whole of it. 5 plain words that explain the entire morning. Now look, before anyone calls this cruelty, sit with what the public actually thinks. In poll after poll, Anne ranks at the very top of the family, right beside Catherine and the memory of Elizabeth herself. People do not see her rise as a power grab. They see it as something owed, something late. And then came the documentary, the one filmed during the coronation year when the cameras were let closer than ever before. Anne did something royals almost never do. She told the truth. She spoke about her mother's final days at Balmoral. She revealed that Elizabeth had worried about dying there, afraid of the trouble it would cause everyone else. And Anne, being Anne, told her mother to stop worrying and stay where she wanted to be, to take the peace she had earned. Then she described watching the imperial state crown lifted off her mother's coffin. And she admitted she felt something close to relief. Not because she did not grieve, because she understood the weight was finally gone. A lifetime of duty set down at last. That moment changed how the country saw her. No pageantry, no mask, just a daughter telling you what service actually costs. And that is the woman now holding the box. So where does that leave Camilla at the end of all this? Sitting beside the king at every dinner, smiling for every camera, holding a title the public never warmed to. Present for the show, absent from the power. The keys, not the crown. In the end, that is the whole story. Anne never reached for the throne and somehow ended up holding the one thing that actually runs it. Tell me in the comments, where were you when you heard the news in August 1997? Because something tells me a lot of you remember that morning better than yesterday.